I'm thrilled to make a video about my favorite units in the game, which are the Tumbleweed and the Bedbug. Both of these units have very similar costs and the same damage, but their damage is somehow misleading. As you can see in the bottom left corner of the screen, both of them do 2000 DPS damage. But if you pull up the unit's info, here it says 1000 burst damage and 10,000 DPS for Armada, while for Cortex is a negative value. So in reality, both of them do 2000 damage at the center of the explosion, and with 15% edge, they will do 300 damage at the edge of the explosion. And they have two types of explosions. The one is either by being destroyed or by sheer impact of running into enemy units and buildings, and in this case the range is about this, so they will do 300 damage at this line, or by self-detonating the unit, and that extends the explosion range, so now they will do 300 damage at the second line. This means that in most of the cases we want to use these bombs with self-D, but I'm going to show you cases where it's actually better to do the impact damage rather than self-detonating. First of all, in order to get the bombs where we want to use transports, and both Tumbleweed and the Bedbug have really good chemistry with the transports, as you can fit one of them in the light transport and 4 of them into the heavy transport. Just as a side note, scuttles cannot be transported at all, just so you know that. Okay, now we have an enemy army over here with these thugs. If I want to drop a bomb on them, there is a good way and a bad way to do this. First of all, I'm going to keybind my mine to my favorite hotkey. I'm going to pick up the bomb in one of my transports. And now, the bad way of dropping bombs on enemies is you drop the bomb really close to them. You don't want to do that, as that will lead to the impact damage. You want to drop the bomb close enough to the army so that the explosion radius reaches all of the units, but you don't want to be near enough so that it does impact. You want to manually detonate the bomb. So in this case, I will drop the bomb a little further behind. I will press my favorite hotkey, and I will do maximal damage this way. While a single bomb is really good, the beautiful part about bombs is when you use multiple of them. And that's because they benefit from double damage from flanking explosions. But if you do this in a real situation, in a crowded area with multiple units, you'll find out that the transport's pathfinding is sometimes is not in your favor, and it will lead to some of the bombs on the ground and other bombs still in transports trying to find other places to drop the bombs, which is not ideal because you'll not be able to change the explosions. The same thing can happen when you're attacking an enemy base, which is, let's say, heavily fortified, and once you pop up with transports on enemy line of sight, they will be notified and they will start building AA turrets. So you want to blow the bombs as fast as possible. And in this case, you'll not have time to actually drop the bombs and wait for them to be close enough to the building in order to self-detonate. You want to just drop the mines using impact explosions. So here I have several of these buildings that you want to blow up. Starting off with the tier 1 bot lab, the Cortex version. It has 2900 damage, and since the bombs do 2000 damage, it's enough for two of them to blow the building on their own, and we don't need chain reaction for them or flanking damage. But just as a good practice, you actually want to drop these bombs as further away from each other as possible, but as closest to the building. I can actually drop them, both of them, in the same place, but again I will end up with sometimes one of the transporters just running away. So I don't want to do that. It's better to just give them a separate room. Okay, now for the T2 factories and the simple fusion, you also need two bombs. But in this case, because they both have a lot more HP, you actually have to split the bombs apart. And you can drop them like this, but sometimes that doesn't work, and it's not a reliable way of bombing buildings. The best way is actually to put them on opposite ends, which I'm going to do here. Okay, and for the fusion, see, sometimes if you place it too close to the building, it will try to move away. But in this case, I think because the first explosion, the second transporter was caught in the first bomb's explosion, so they both went off. Okay, for the advanced fusion now, it requires four bombs, but I'm not going to demonstrate. It's just the same thing. You draw a circle and they will all detonate. What I'm going to show you instead is using advanced transporters. Since the Armada Aphis has less health, you can actually use 4 bombs. For the Cortex one, 4 bombs using the heavy transporters. For the Cortex one, you actually need 5, but just to be safe, I just use 5 in both of the cases, and it is easier to remember. So I'm going to load 2 bombs in one of the transporters and 3 in the second one. Okay, the next thing is regarding commanders. You can actually snipe commanders using bombs. One thing that is kind of weird, and I don't really understand how it works, is that the bombs only do about 600 or 650 damage to the commander, and if you surround the commander with multiple bombs, you will not benefit from flanking damage. And I don't know exactly why that happens. It just is what it is. So for that reason, you need 5 bombs to snipe a commander. If you do this in real life, you will notice something peculiar about this. That is, if the commander is facing the transporters, let me make 5 of these. If I was actually to drop if I was actually to drop all of these 5 bombs on top of the commander, the laser from the commander will be actually enough to destroy one of my transporters before all the transporters get near the commander, and it will not destroy the commander, it will only leave it in red. For this reason, is the way I do it is actually make a bomber, and I lead all of this formation with my bomber, so that the commander will actually target the bomber instead of the transporters. Oh, I forgot to let it fire. Okay, I'll do it again. Okay, another thing is that when you're facing players, they will try to dig on your first transport, and if they manage to do that, the transporters will chain react with each other, and it will not be enough to destroy your commander. So the transporters actually have to be either on top or near your commander to actually blow it up. And the reason for that is, even though you may have seen that it is easy to dig on transporters that are holding commanders, when it comes to bombs, they're actually faster. So if I compare transporting a commander versus transporting a bomb, you can see that it's a little bit faster with the bomb, which makes it a little bit difficult to dig on. So you have to be careful about this aspect. You also may have noticed what happens if you destroy the transporter holding the bomb. It actually blows up. The same thing happens if you self-D the transport. It will blow up the bomb inside with it. And this will do damage to the ground as well. It's not as good as actually landing the mine, but in some cases it is good enough. And I'm going to demonstrate this right now. So let's say here is an army that is bunched up, and I'm not exactly sure if I can land the mine over here, and if this army is moving a lot, I might not be able to land the transporter. So if I land the transporter over here, it probably will do damage to all the units in the front line, but I want to do damage to units that are in the middle as well. So for this technique, I'm going to self-D my transporter, and I'm going to mimic that it's going to land over here, but it will not reach the landing spot over here. It will try to blow up over the army, and I'm going to make sure that these are on hold fire so that the RNG will not shoot the transporter down. Okay, that was a totally miss. I'm going to do it again. See, that was a lot more effective than actually bombing the front. For my last example, I'm going to use the same technique of actually self-D'ing the transporter with the bomb inside to actually destroy aircraft. And as you might already know, different aircrafts fly at different altitudes. And in this case, the T1 transport flies at the exact same altitude as T1 spy planes, shurikens, gunships, seaplanes, and transporters. So if you self-D a transporter with a mine inside, it will actually do damage to these types of units. It will also damage bombers or other high-flying aircraft, but is clearly not as efficient. That's all for this video. Hope you have fun bombing other players.